Don't worry, Petra. I'll send you a fruit basket at Christmas. She said it into a live microphone. 200 people in the Ritz-Carlton ballroom. Crystal chandeliers. Champagne flutes frozen mid-air. My sister Julianne held the building keys in her hand like she had earned them, like she had been the one at 3 in the morning for 8 years writing code while the rest of the city slept. I was at table 12, alone. No one looked at me. My name is Petro K4. I am 34 years old. I wrote the first line of code this company ever ran on. I rebuilt the entire architecture the year it nearly collapsed. And 2 weeks ago, at our annual holiday party, my older sister stood on that stage and announced to everyone I had ever worked with that her mother had left her everything. She looked directly at my table, held the pause, let 200 people turn and see where she was looking. Then she said it. Stay in the background, little sister. I'll send you a Christmas gift. My stepfather clapped in the third row. Our director smiled. Julianne raised the keys like a trophy. I pushed my chair back and walked out. The corridor carpet was so thick I could not hear my own footsteps. I counted them. 21 steps before I stopped against the wall and breathed slowly through my nose and reminded myself that none of this was a surprise. I had known something was coming. I had not known how public she would make it. Before we get into this, please take a moment to like and subscribe, but only if this story truly resonates with you. And drop your location and local time in the comments. Now, let me take you back to the 20 minutes after I walked out of that ballroom. Because what I found during those 20 minutes is the reason everything that came after was possible. I went back to my office. The building was silent. Down the hall, the party continued. Muffled laughter and clinking glasses, the sound of people celebrating my humiliation. I sat at my desk. I pulled up the server access log I had been building quietly for 3 years. My hands were steady when I typed in my credentials. The screen refreshed. I pressed print. The printer behind me hummed once. One page slid out. The header read, Document History Report, Unauthorized Access Attempts, past 5 years. Below it was a single entry, a login timestamp. 3:14 in the morning. An IP address I had memorized 6 months ago. My sister's home network. Down the hall, I could still hear her voice. Warm. Certain. Entirely unhurried. She had no idea what I was holding. And I had exactly 72 hours. To understand what happened next, you need to know who we were before that night. My mother built this company the way she built everything in her life. Quietly, methodically, without ever announcing herself. She was 51 when she started it. An accountant for 26 years, she used $40,000 she had saved over decades, and a domain name she registered one afternoon at the kitchen table. By the time she died 6 months ago, that company was worth $12 million. I was the infrastructure. Every version of the platform's code has my name in the metadata. I was the one who stayed through every outage, who knew every flaw in the system, who kept it running through every growth surge. I was also, almost always, the person whose name was not mentioned when the wins were announced. Julianne was the face. 4 years older, she had a gift I never learned, the ability to walk into any room and make the people already there feel like they had been waiting for her. Polished. Strategic. Magnetic in the way that power responds to. But underneath all of that, she was drowning. Her crypto trading had been wrong for years. Decision after decision she believed was brilliant had come back to punish her. By the time our mother passed, Julianne was carrying debts she could not disclose to anyone without losing everything. She needed the company not for ambition, for air. She had also been taking from it for 3 years. Transfers small enough to avoid automatic flags. Large enough that when I eventually added them up, the total reached $470,000. I need to say one thing about her, because it matters for what came later. When I was 12 years old, I stood outside my school in hard rain with nothing to cover me. Julianne was 16. She came running across the parking lot, pulled the gray zip-up jacket she always wore off her own shoulders without slowing down, and dropped it over mine. She just said, "Get home before Mom worries." That was all. She never asked for it back. I never told her. I kept it. That jacket stayed in the back of my closet for 22 years, because I needed to remember that she had once been capable of giving without calculation. At the bottom of my mother's desk drawer, sealed in an unmarked envelope I found the week after the funeral, was a printed copy of Julianne's crypto exchange account statements. At the bottom of the last page, in my mother's handwriting, were these words: "My older daughter is very frightened. I can see everything." I did not know yet what she had seen or what she had done about it, but I already knew who had printed the forged version of her will on the night before she passed away. I had been building the evidence to prove it for 3 years, and now I had 72 hours before it became legally irrelevant. I thought back over the years before that night, and one moment kept returning. Not because it was the worst thing Julianne had done, because it was the moment I understood that what she was doing was never impulsive. It was a system. 3 years ago, I finished the largest software update the company had ever shipped. 6 months of work. The last 7 weeks, without a single full day off. I pushed the final version to the live server at 4 in the morning, alone in the server room with cold coffee and the particular quiet that only exists at that hour. I was proud. It was one of the only times in my professional life that I sat with something I had made and knew, without needing anyone to confirm it, that it was genuinely good. The next morning, Julianne walked into the board meeting with a slide deck already prepared. She stood at the head of the table and presented the architecture to the board as if she had conceived every line of it herself. She had the metrics. She had the language. She talked about her platform vision for 22 minutes. Our mother sat at the head of the table and listened. When the applause came, she said, "Julianne has such a gift for leadership." I looked across the room at Julianne. She caught my eye and winked. I did not say anything. I went back to my desk and opened a folder on my hard drive. I called it "For When It Matters." That was when I understood that one day it would. That same week, I found the first large transfer I could not explain. $14,000 moved from the company's operating account to an overseas account I did not recognize. I flagged it and brought it directly to our mother. She looked at me with an expression I had never seen before. Tired in a way that went deeper than sleep. She said, "Let me handle it." A week later, Julianne moved into a new apartment in the city's most expensive district. Our mother said nothing more about it. I did not press her, but I kept everything. Every email. Every transaction log. Every server access record showing a login from Julianne's home network at hours no authorized user would need. Then, 6 months before our mother died, I found something else. I was in her office late one night, backing up files, when I noticed a compressed archive on the server with a timestamp from 3 years earlier. The file was titled, "Forensic Analysis, Printer Microdot Tracking, Confidential." I opened it. I read the summary page. Then I read the conclusions. Our mother had commissioned it the same week she found the first missing transfer. She had known for 3 years. She had been preparing something. I closed the file. I did not tell anyone. I kept it in my folder, next to all the other evidence, and I waited. I remembered her words, "Let me handle it." I realized then that she had been handling it all along, just not in the way I expected. The folder had been growing for 3 years. On the night of the party, I finally knew it was time to open it. I arrived early that night, and I kept thinking about our mother's voice saying, "Let me handle it." I wondered if this was what she had been handling all along, if she had known this moment would come. I had been in the ballroom for 11 minutes when Julianne found me. She pulled me gently by the arm into the women's restroom off the main corridor. The door swung shut. The lighting was warm and unforgiving, the kind of hotel bathroom where everything looks expensive, but the mirror shows you every detail you would rather not see. She checked her lipstick in the glass. "I know you've been in the server logs," she said pleasantly. "I saw the activity reports. It does not matter." She smoothed the collar of her blazer with 2 fingers. "Mom already signed everything. The lawyers are already in motion. You are very good at code, Petra. Petra, you always have been." She tilted her head and finally looked directly at me. "But you have always been slow with people. That is just an honest observation." She walked out. I stayed in that bathroom for 4 minutes without moving. I looked at myself in the mirror. My face was very still. My hands at my sides did not shake. I thought about our mother again. I thought about how she had said, "Let me handle it," and how Julianne had no idea what that really meant. Then I followed her back into the ballroom. 30 minutes later, the stage lights came on. Julianne walked to the microphone. The applause started before she said a word. The HR director placed the building keys in her hands with the deliberate ceremonial quality of someone transferring something to its rightful owner. My stepfather in the 3rd row was clapping with his whole body. I sat at table 12 in the back and watched my sister accept something our mother had spent 8 years of her life creating. "My mother, our founder," Julianne said, "left this company to the person she trusted most. The person best positioned to carry her vision forward." She paused. She found my table in the crowd. She found my face. She held the pause exactly long enough for everyone in the room to notice where she was looking. "Petra has always been best in the background." A short laugh moved through the room. "Stay there, little sister. I'll send you a Christmas gift." Someone at my table exhaled uncomfortably. I did not look at them. I pushed my chair back and walked out. The corridor carpet was thick and silent under my shoes. I counted my steps. 21 before I stopped against the wall. I breathed slowly through my nose. My hands were shaking now. I pressed them flat against the wall to make them stop. 72 hours. That number repeated in my chest all the way back down the corridor. 72 hours before the final transfer documents were signed and countersigned, and the company became legally, permanently, irreversibly hers. 72 hours before everything I had spent 3 years documenting became procedurally meaningless. Back in my office, I turned on my monitor. The party noise filtered through the walls, distant and muffled, like a sound coming through water. I opened my hard drive. I found the folder. Inside it was the forensic PDF I had discovered 4 months earlier. I had not looked at it since that night. I opened it now and read every page. The methodology, the conclusions, the appendix explaining exactly what every printer leaves behind on every document it produces. Every page carries a microscopic pattern of yellow dots. Each dot encodes the machine's serial number and the precise date and time of printing. That serial number can be matched to a registered address. My mother had known this for 3 years. She had given that knowledge to someone. She had prepared something with it. I picked up my phone and called Mr. Stocking and Ashworth. It was after 11 at night. He answered on the 3rd ring. "I'm ready," I said. There was a brief pause. Then, "Good. Come in first thing tomorrow. Bring everything." She thought she had already won. She had no idea that the most dangerous document in this case was not the will she had forged. It was the report already sitting in my hands, written by someone my mother had hired 3 years before either of us knew what was coming. I sat in my office for a long time after that call, listening to the muffled party sounds, holding the report, and waiting for my hands to stop shaking. I drove home alone after the call. The hotel garage was concrete and low-ceilinged and quiet in the way underground spaces are when you need containment. I sat in the car with the engine off. My coat was still on. My heels from the party were still on. I sat there in the particular stillness of someone who has been moving very fast for several hours and has suddenly stopped. My phone buzzed. A message from Julianne. Don't do anything foolish. I have the best legal team in the city. You write code. Know your place. I put the phone face down on the passenger seat. I did not pick it up again for a long time. The garage ventilation hummed somewhere above me. A car moved on the level above, tires on the ramp, and then it was very still again. I sat with my hands in my lap and I thought about what I was about to do. Not whether to do it. I had already decided that in the corridor outside the ballroom. I thought about the cost, the time, the exact shape of what the next 72 hours would require. Then I thought about the voicemail. I still had it on my phone from 3 years ago. I found it and pressed play. My mother's voice came through the speaker in the quiet car. I'm very proud of you, Petra. Don't let anyone tell you that what you've built isn't yours. Don't let anyone tell you that. The recording ended. The ventilation hummed. I did not realize I was crying until I felt the wet on my hands. I sat there for 20 minutes, maybe longer. I did not move. I just sat in the dark garage with my mother's voice still echoing in my head and my sister's text still glowing on the passenger seat. Then I closed the audio file. I opened my laptop. I opened the forensic PDF again, and I read every page one more time. The methodology, the conclusions, the appendix. I needed to find out what was left for me to do. When I finally started the car, it was almost 1 in the morning. I drove home through empty streets, and I did not remember any of it the next morning. Just the garage. Just the hum. Just my mother's voice. Mr. Ashworth's office smelled like wood polish and old paper, and the particular warmth of a room that has been used seriously for decades. He had been practicing estate law in this city for 41 years. His desk was wide and old and clean. He poured 2 cups of coffee without asking, sat down across from me, and placed a large brown envelope on the desk between us. He did not open it immediately. Your mother came to me 3 years ago, he said. The same week she commissioned the forensic analysis. She believed her older daughter was misappropriating company funds, and she intended to document everything before she could no longer do so herself. He moved the envelope slightly. She instructed me to wait. She said, when the right moment comes, Petra will contact you. She always knows where to find what she needs. He opened the envelope. Inside was a will. Notarized. Witnessed by 2 attorneys and a bank officer. Dated 3 years and 2 months ago. It transferred the company in full to me, with one condition written in my mother's own precise and careful language. My daughter Petra must be prepared to protect this company from the consequences of her sister's choices. My mother had known. She had prepared everything. She had been waiting for me to be ready. That was the moment I understood the shape of what she had built. Not just the company. The whole architecture of what came after. I had 72 hours minus the time already spent. Less than 2 full days. Mr. Ashworth set down his coffee and said, let's begin. The first 24 hours I delivered everything I had documented. The complete server access logs showing Julianne's home IP, logging in at 3:14 in the morning on the night before our mother's original signature, was obtained on the forged document. The 3-year record of unauthorized transfers from the company's operating account, each one time-stamped and cross-referenced. The forensic PDF. Mr. Schicks. Ashworth read it without speaking while I sat across the desk and waited. When he finished, he looked up. The document she filed with the probate court, he said. You believe it was produced on her home printer. I know it was. I have the analysis. I just need a certified expert to confirm the physical match. He nodded slowly. A forensic claim of this nature requires that the physical document she filed be examined by a certified analyst. The court will not accept a report alone. He picked up his pen. I requested a certified copy from the court clerk yesterday morning. It arrived by the time you called last night. The second day I met with Dr. Surder Fenwick, the forensic document examiner our mother had originally retained. He was a former federal document analyst, retired to private practice, small and precise and entirely without theater. He examined the certified copy of the filed will and the methodology report side by side for 20 minutes. Then he handed me a slip of paper with Julianne's home address printed on it in small, clean type. "The printer that produced this document is registered at this address," he said. That was all. That afternoon, Julianne's legal team filed a motion to block access to the certified court copy, arguing it had been obtained improperly. The motion would have pushed us past the 72-hour window. Mr. Rain Ashworth had filed a counter-motion 18 minutes before theirs was received. He had anticipated it the day before. The micro-twist at the end of day 2 that evening. My phone rang. It was Jonathan Park, the IT manager. He had worked for the company for 6 years. Careful. Methodical. The kind of person who is very easy to overlook. "I found something else when I was pulling the offline archives," he said. "An email thread that was sent to the deletion queue 3 years ago." I recovered the full text. He forwarded it to me. It was a message Julianne had written to a former business partner. "I am close to taking control of the family company. My sister has no idea what is happening. She never does. She sees the code. She misses everything else." I read it 3 times. Then I forwarded it to Mr. Televin Ashworth without comment. The third day morning I arrived at the office before Julianne. I was at my desk when she came in. I heard her voice in the corridor, warm and easy, laughing with 2 members of the marketing team about something from the party. I watched through the glass as she smiled and touched someone's arm in that particular way she had. She looked composed. She looked certain. She passed my office. She saw me sitting there. Her laughter stopped for just a moment. Then she kept walking. I looked back at my desk. On it was a brown envelope, sealed, the same color and size as the ones my mother had always used for important documents. I had placed it there myself an hour earlier. I did not open it. I just sat there, watching her reflection in the glass as she walked away. The silent, knowing moment that afternoon, I was in the conference room with Mr. Ashworth, reviewing the final documents, when the door opened. Julianne stood there. She looked at me. She looked at Mr. Ashworth. She looked at the papers spread across the table. "What are you doing?" she asked. I did not answer. Mr. Ashworth said, "We are preparing for tomorrow's hearing." Julianne's face did not change, but her hand, resting on the door frame, tightened. Just slightly. Just enough for me to notice. She said, "You're wasting your time. Petra will never fight this. She does not have it in her." Those words hung in the air. I said nothing. I just looked at her, and for the first time I saw something flicker in her eyes. Doubt. She left. In the corner of the conference room, on a chair near the window, a woman I had not spoken to sat very still. She was older, perhaps in her mid-70s, and she wore a dark wool coat that was clearly old and well-maintained. She held a brown envelope on her lap in both hands. She had been there when I arrived that morning. She had not spoken. She had not introduced herself. She simply held the envelope and watched. I had seen her face before. In old photographs in my mother's office, standing with my mother at a charity function years ago. I did not know her name yet. She looked at me steadily. She did not nod or smile. She held the envelope and waited. Tomorrow was the hearing. The probate courtroom held 12 people plus the judge. Julianne sat in the front row with her legal team, 3 attorneys in pressed dark suits. She had arrived early. When I walked in, she was leaning toward her lead counsel, laughing at something he had said. Her coffee cup was in her hand. I had passed her team in the corridor, and they had been celebrating with champagne glasses even before the session opened. As I took my seat, Julianne leaned over and whispered, just loud enough for me to hear, "You really think a printer can save you?" "No one will believe you, Petra." "Petra? They never do." I said nothing. I just looked at her. Mr. Ashworth took his seat across the room, opened his case without hurrying, and said nothing to anyone. Julianne's lead attorney stood first. He alleged that I had accessed company servers without authorization, manufactured evidence to frame my sister, and brought this action for the sole purpose of seizing an inheritance I had no legitimate claim to. He submitted a screenshot and described it as proof of my unauthorized server activity. "Mr. Fye," Ashworth stood. "The access event opposing counsel is referencing was performed by Miss Okafor during standard working hours under her authorized employee credentials, which we can demonstrate using the company's own access control records." He placed a folder on the table. "With the court's permission." The judge permitted it. The crypto account statements came first. 3 years of Julianne's trading losses, each corresponding withdrawal matched to a date. Each matching date matched to an outgoing transfer from the company's operating account. Then the server log record, the full history, including the 314 login from Julianne's home network on the morning the original signature had been obtained. Then, the chain of custody certification, signed by Jonathan Park, notarized, submitted under penalty of perjury. Jonathan stood up from the public gallery and confirmed every item. Julianne turned to look at him. Her expression did not change. Her right hand moved to the table. Her coffee cup shifted toward the edge. She caught it without looking down. Then Dr. Fenwick stood. He wore glasses on a chain. He lifted the certified copy of the will Julianne had filed with the court and held it with both hands, turned toward the judge, adjusted his grip with a short, dry sound of paper under pressure. "I will read my conclusions," he said. The building's ventilation produced a low, continuous note from the vents above the gallery. A chair in the back row shifted against the floor. The microdot matrix pattern embedded in the paper fibers of the document in evidence matches to a certainty exceeding 99.7%. The output signature of an HP LaserJet printer, model 4500N, serial number 7A32K1, registered to the respondent's home address. He paused. The ventilation hummed. The document was printed at 2:47 in the morning, 14 days before the testator's death. He set the paper down. The ventilation hummed. Julianne's hand closed around the coffee cup. She turned toward her attorney. Her mouth opened. He placed a hand on her arm. Her shoulder came up slightly and then dropped. "Mr. Kyle," Ashworth spoke. "The respondent's own legal counsel confirmed in writing this week that the printer is the respondent's and that she has sole authorized access to it." He handed the email to the clerk. "That confirmation is now in evidence." The woman in the dark wool coat stood up from the gallery. She walked to the front of the room. She placed her brown envelope on the table in front of the judge with both hands. She turned to face the room. "My name is Evelyn Adichie. I was Adaziz Okafor's closest friend. I watched Julianne take money from this company for 3 years. I watched Adiez sit with that knowledge and choose not to destroy her daughter publicly, but to prepare a way for her other daughter to survive it." She opened the envelope and removed a USB drive. "Drive? 1 week before Ada Ease died, she called me. She said Julianne had threatened her. She said she was frightened for Petra. She said, and I will quote her exactly, 'I have a plan. Everything is in place. I have been waiting for Petra to be ready.'" This is the recording of that conversation. The judge allowed it to be played. My mother's voice came through the courtroom speakers. She sounded tired. She sounded precise. She described the threats in detail. She described the real will, the forensic analysis, the documents left in Mr. Ashworth's care. Her voice was steady for the entire recording. When it ended, Julianne had both hands over her face. Her elbows were on the table. Her untouched coffee sat in front of her. The power shift dice stood up. She lowered her hands. Her eyes were red. She looked at me with something I had never seen from her before. Not strategy. Not calculation. Something much older and much smaller than that. Like a person who has just fully understood that a thing cannot be undone. I reached into the bag beside my chair. I placed the gray zip-up jacket on the table between us. I kept this for 22 years to remember you were once good. I looked at her. I do not need to remember anymore. Comment the word justice below if you believe she made the right choice. Julianne looked at the jacket. Her hands were flat on the table. Her whole body had gone very still. The way something goes still when it has been running very fast for a very long time and has finally run out of room. Her mouth opened once and closed. Her fingers twitched, just slightly, as if reaching for something that was no longer there. The judge did not require further deliberation. The company, valued at $12 million, now stands in my name, and the $470,000 Julianne took from it over 3 years has been recovered and returned in full. Julianne was convicted of document forgery, fraud, and undue influence over a testator, and I watched her leave the courthouse on a gray afternoon in handcuffs, her expensive blazer creased from hours in that small room, no one beside her, and she did not look back toward where I was standing. That evening I sat alone in my mother's old office with the door closed, and on the desk in front of me was the old printer she had kept there for years, and beside it the gray jacket, folded, and for the first time in 22 years, I felt no weight from either one, only the lightness of something carried a long time and finally set down. Most of us have spent years building things quietly for people who took the credit and called it trust. When the person who was supposed to protect you finally shows you who they really are, do you fight to hold on to what you built, or do you let it go to protect what is left of yourself? If stories about people who refuse to stay invisible find something in you, this channel was made for you. I am Peter Okafor, and the printer was running long before she ever took the stage.